What is up, y'all? Welcome on back to another review, as I have one more to review before I jump into Fantastic Four First Steps. I am here to talk about the dreaded Fant4stic. I have been dreading this review ever since I decided to review the first three movies because it is, without a doubt, one of the worst movies of all time. So go ahead, buckle in, and let's just go ahead and tear this shit apart now. Get it out the way so I can move on to bigger and better things with my life. So if it wasn't blatantly obvious how I feel about this movie, I absolutely despise this movie. Is it my most hated movie of all time? No. And actually, to be fair, it's nowhere near like my top 10 most hated movies of all time, but it is in the conversation for movies that I just despise watching because there's just so much wrong with this. I'm willing to say that they probably don't get a single thing right with this movie. I don't know if there's a single redeeming quality with this movie. I don't think there's a single element of Fant4stic that I could say, yes, they kind of knocked that out of the park. I kind of wish I had more of that. And I think in order to really talk about this movie, I think we have to mention the fact that this movie was just absolutely devastated by behind the scenes bullshit going on. So Josh Trank was the director, and apparently at some point got fired from it, from what I've heard, and like nobody liked working with him. The script wasn't good. There was conflicts of what they wanted this movie to be, and then there was reshoots, and they completely changed the ending of the movie, which if you watch this movie, you realize that it is a completely different movie. Once they get their superpowers, completely different movie. It was never going to be good just based on everything that happened behind the scenes. But in the end, that doesn't matter because they still released a movie and we still have to judge said movie on what they gave us. I stand by it that this is, without a doubt, one of the worst. I think it is definitely in the conversation. I don't know what I would put up in like a top 10 list of worst comic book movies of all time. This is definitely in that conversation. Like I said, I don't think this is anywhere near my top 10 most hated movies of all time. But if we're just talking strictly comic book movies, this is in the conversation for sure. Has to be. Like, it has to be on the table as a discussion. Like, this is definitely in the top 10, right? Like, it has to be pretty damn close. It is just, it's kind of offensive how bad this movie is. I think offensive would be the word that I would use the most. So when you go back and rewatch Fantastic Four from 2005, then you watch Rise of the Silver Surfer in 2007, and then you watch this back to back to back, it is crazy just the difference between the movies. If you have watched or listened to my reviews of Fantastic Four 2005 and Rise of the Silver Surfer, then you know like those movies are not well made. They're not good movies, but they're fun. Okay, they don't take themselves seriously. They're just entertaining from beginning to end. They're so bad, they're good. This one doesn't have that aspect of it. It's not fun. Oh, 2008, The Dark Knight comes out. This comes out in 2015. Rise of the Silver Surfer comes out in 2007, right before The Dark Knight. Now the time period between like 2008 and onwards, these studios are attempting to recreate the magic that Christopher Nolan brought to the Dark Knight trilogy. And that is a dark, grounded, gritty, more realistic take on superheroes. And they bring in Josh Trank, who directed Chronicle. I've only seen the movie like once, and I remember really liking it back then, but I haven't watched it ever since it came out on like DVD. But there was conflict on what they wanted this movie to be. Did they want it to be dark, grounded, gritty? Was that the director? Was that the studio? If I had to guess, I think the studio saw the movie and they were like, wow, this is not fun whatsoever. This is not a good movie. We have to insert some form of fun into the movie. And I think that's where the reshoots came in, because that's when all the action is. At the very end of the movie, I know I bitched about there being like, what, 2 action set pieces in the first one, and there's, what, 2 in maybe the second one. There's 1 in this. I mean, it's really just one giant set piece at the very end of the movie where it's broken up with some in-between stuff. But for the most part, it's one action set piece. But let's start off with the characters. Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom. That is the bread and butter of these movies. You have to nail at least the Fantastic Four more than anything. And that's what the first two movies did. The movies may have sucked, but at least they got somewhat right the Fantastic Four. Okay, you like their relationships, you like how they interacted with each other, you like some of the dialogue, the banter back and forth, and it felt not 100% like a family, but it felt more like a family than what we got in this movie. So I think you have to nail the Fantastic Four in order to have anything else successful in this movie. And let me just go ahead and say it out loud for everybody. I think on paper, there is a good movie here. And it's not for lack of good ideas. I think there are some good ideas here. They're executed so poorly that the final product is just a poor imitation of what this was on paper. I mean, you have Miles Teller as Mr. Fantastic. You have Michael B. Jordan as Human Torch, which honestly, you just stripped every ounce of charisma from Michael B. Jordan. I didn't know it was possible to make a Michael B. Jordan character so unlikable. And I don't mean unlikable in the sense that like he's a dick and I can't find myself liking that character. It's just they don't give us anything of that character for us to like. They completely strip every ounce of personality from the Human Torch that Michael B. Jordan doesn't even get to show off the charisma that he has. Look, I think you can say anything about these actors. Michael B. Jordan is a damn good actor. I mean, I just saw Sinners recently. I loved him in Friday Night Lights. He's in the Creed movies. Just so many great performances from Michael B. Jordan. I think this might be his worst. And I don't want to say that's all because of him. I think he's trying his best. They just don't give him anything to work with this script. So it's absolutely crazy to me that they make a character performed by Michael B. Jordan just absolutely atrocious. I mean, he is a shell of what this character is. And then you have Kate Mara as Sue Storm, who, if you watch this movie and you don't get the idea that she fucking hated every single second that she was there on screen, I don't know what to tell you. She looks like she's having zero fun. Now, apparently, her and the director got into it quite a bit. So I think that had a lot to play with her performance. She reminds me of Dakota Johnson in Madam Web, where you can see the fact that she does not want to be there. She's giving no energy, no type of effort for this role. She's kind of just there. She has no personality, no charisma. She was great in House of Cards. And then this movie came out like not long after she got that role. She gives such a flat performance here. And then the character herself is just so poorly written. I mean, could you honestly say that this is Sue Storm after watching this movie? I couldn't. I couldn't. If you compared her to the Sue Storm of the first two movies, it's completely different character. Completely different. I understand where they're trying to go with. They're trying to make these characters more realistic, more grounded, and they just failed miserably. There's no chemistry between her and Miles Teller. None whatsoever. And honestly, there's no chemistry between any of these actors. It comes across as very bland, boring, and effortless as you watch this movie. You think it's going to get better, and it never does. The performances throughout the entire movie are just abysmal. And then we have Jamie Bell as Ben Grimm. He was in that, I forget what was it, Turn, I think was the name of the show. It was the American Revolution show. And honestly, I think Jamie Bell is a good actor. It's just they don't give him a character to portray in this movie. Ben Grimm is barely in this movie, and he's supposed to be the best friend of Mr. Fantastic. There's just barely in any of it. It's Miles Teller, Kate Mara, and then they have Toby Kebbell, who is Dr. Doom in the movie. They're really the three mains, and then Michael B. Jordan comes in there for, what, maybe 10 minutes of screen. He's not in this movie a whole lot either. So when you watch this hour and 45 long minute movie, you think to yourself at the very end, did anything ever happen in this movie? Is there something different at the very end than what was at the very beginning? I couldn't tell you. These characters are the exact same from the very beginning to the very end. There's no character arc. They're all one-dimensional characters when we had two previous movies that were just, I mean, they're terrible, but they're fun at least. And they did right by the characters for the most part, not Doctor Doom. But to make them enjoyable characters, they were able to accomplish that. With Fant4stic, they don't accomplish that whatsoever. And then Toby Kebbell. This guy was in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He was Koba. Great performance by him. He comes in this movie, and I know I talked a lot of shit about Doctor Doom and Julian McMahon in the first two Fantastic Four movies. I understand that I talked a lot of shit because what we got in Fant4stic is one of the worst things that we got in the movie. Their portrayal of Doctor Doom in this movie is unbelievably bad. Now, I mentioned a few minutes ago that on paper, there are some good aspects here. It just didn't translate to the movie. I think at some point, there was a very well written Doctor Doom. You can see little bits and pieces of what they might have tried to go for, and everything got stripped basically to the bare minimum. I think there's aspects there that were interesting. We just didn't execute them right. So you get the sense of his character being a little jealous of Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm building a relationship. There's one moment where they're talking, they're laughing. Victor calls Reed up and he's like, "Hey, y'all are being very unprofessional right now." And that's all based off of jealousy. And I think if they would have continued that thread throughout the rest of the movie and kind of built it towards the end where he is this super jealous scientist that feels like he now has all these mystical powers and he can now take over the world, or whatever his motivation is at the very end, I think there's an interesting aspect to that plot line thread right there that could have been great. But we get that one little ounce of him being jealous, and then it never gets touched again. And then simultaneously, we're building this relationship with Sue and Reed. It doesn't happen. We have that one scene where they're laughing. We have this other scene where it's almost kind of like they're in a library of sorts. She's listening to music and he's asking her questions, but it seems it's odd. The whole scene is odd because it just seems like they don't care enough to be there. They're not putting any effort into that scene. So the performances are coming across as very flat. So I can't really believe in them starting a relationship together when are not exuding that type of chemistry between each other. Like they don't even give a shit. So why should I give a shit about what's going on screen? So I will admit there is an interesting plot line thread right there. They touched it just the tip and then went on about different things. And it almost feels like they had like 4 or 5 different like key points for what made Victor tick and like what made him become Doctor Doom, what his motivations were. Like there were about 4 or 5 different things there, and they were like, which one do we choose? I mean, like we need like one, maybe 2. And they're like, but do we though? Why don't we just choose all of them? And that's what they decided to do, because every time that they touch on a motivation or a potential motivation for Victor Von Doom to turn evil, it's like they touch it and then they go to a different motivation. You don't really know who this character is at the very end of the movie. Is he like pro planet, pro environment? Is he anti Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm? Is he anti government? What are his motivations at the very end of the movie? You can't tell me because they're just so scattered. We don't ever get a sense of who he is through an hour and 45 minutes. Now, I do want to ask y'all one question. Do we ever feel like the Fantastic Four are the Fantastic Four through this movie? No, we don't. They're never really doing anything fantastic. They're not doing anything heroic. They're just people that use their powers that they got to stop one dude, and that's legitimately it. They decided to do some missions for the government with the sole fact being they wanted to be fixed. There's no redeeming qualities of any of these characters for us to root for them. They don't do anything heroic throughout the movie. We go through probably an hour and 10 minutes, something around there, where they are just trying to build a machine to go to this alternate dimension. And then for another 20 minutes, we have them searching for Reed Richards wherever he is on Earth. and it's just the Thing doing a little montage of like missions for the government, and Human Torch is trying to learn how to control his abilities. Same thing with Sue. None of it is to help people. None of it portrays them as actual heroes. So it's crazy to me that we get no sense of their powers other than the fact that they did a little bit of training, and a lot of it was through a montage. Just so boring. I can't stress enough how the scenes of them learning how to control their powers, to use their powers, so boring. You have a guy that can flame on, you have a girl that can go invisible. We don't get any reference to her being invisible. I mean, you go look at the Jessica Alba movies. I mean, they made a joke every single movie about her becoming invisible and then her being naked. You don't have any of these characters really struggling with their abilities. I think if you were going for a more realistic take on these types of characters, you can go down some dark alleys for sure, but none of them really sit there and contemplate or think like, man, I'm always on fire now. Like, how am I going to use these abilities? Like, you don't ever get that sense from Michael B. Jordan's character, the Human Torch. You never get that sense because we don't spend enough time with him to really get that aspect of the character. We don't know how he feels about having those abilities other than one little line where he's like, this is what's meant to be. Like, that's as far as it goes in terms of developing that aspect of his character. Sue Storm is just all like, we need to be fixed. And that's the extent. Ben Grimm just wants to be fixed. And he says like 3 lines that Reed failed him and left him. So again, these characters are so poorly written. And I haven't even mentioned, I totally forgot to mention the fact that Doctor Doom looks like, what the fuck were they thinking when they designed Doctor Doom? He looks like a crash dummy. No fucking lie. He looks like a crash dummy. One of the biggest villains in any comic book ever. One of the most iconic villains. And you turn him into a crash test dummy? I am sure that they had like 10, 15 designs of what Doctor Doom would look like in this movie. And this is the one that they chose. I can't wrap my head around the fact that they think this one was good. And then they throw the cloak on him, which just makes his character look even dumber. And then let's talk about the one-liners here where they're like, I mentioned this in the first 2 reviews. I said, they're kind of punny through here, but at least it was punny. At least it was fun. At least it got a little bit of a chuckle out of you. This one, not so much. There are several lines here that are just eye rolling. And don't get me started on the whole, what are we going to name our team? I don't know. This feels fantastic. What? Say that again? Come the fuck on. Come the fuck on. That's how you're going to come up with the name. So all in all, I hate this movie. I think the characters are so poorly written. These are not the Fantastic Four characters that you see in all the comic books and you've grown to love over the decades that they have been coming out. These are not those characters. These are some poor man's version of what these characters should be. It is sad that this is what we got. And like I said, the potential was there. There are some good things on paper that could work, like some of the character aspects of Doctor Doom. Seems cool. Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch seems like a fucking home run to me. Like, his charisma fits what the Human Torch should be. To me, like, I think that's a perfect casting choice. But what they wrote for the character and what showed up on screen is just laughable. So yeah, there are a few things here that seemed great on paper, but when they put it on the screen, it was just so poorly executed. That again, there's no redeeming quality in this movie. I can't tell you a single positive from this movie. None of it is enjoyable. I was looking at my watch every 5 minutes. This movie is just a little bit longer than the first 2 movies. It's at like an hour and 45. I think the second one was like, what, an hour and a half or something like that. It felt like a 2.5 hour long movie. The pacing drags by. It feels like I'm watching 2 movies instead of 1. And it's just no fun. If you're going to make a really bad movie, it better be fun. It better be the first 2 Fantastic Four movies, which those could be in the conversation of the best comic book movies of all time in comparison to this one. Like, that's how far the gap is between those 2 and this one. So luckily for me, I think this might be the last time that I ever have to watch Fant4stic. So let me know down below how you feel about the movie. Are there any redeeming qualities here things that you liked that, I don't know, maybe I could change my mind about. I'm not going to, but leave a comment below and try to change my mind. And while you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell, really helps us out. And be on the lookout for my review for Fantastic Four First Steps. I'm hoping it's going to come out within the next week. I got to find some off time to go see it, but I don't know. I'm hearing some reviews and I'm pretty damn excited about it. So I hope it is a really good movie. It is the first MCU movie that I am excited about in a very, very long time. So I hope it is a very good movie. But guys, that is going to be it from me. I appreciate y'all joining me for these reviews, and I'll catch y'all next time on the next one. Latest.